Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody enjoyed last week's video and somebody got something from it. So this week I'm going to get straight to it. I'm not going to do any filming of cooking or training or anything like that. I'm just going to have a quick chat about the subject that comes up a lot with competitors and everyday people as well who are struggling with their food. And that is binge eating. The post-show rebound and cheating on your diet when you are in a prep. Those of you who might not know much about competing, everything to do with competing is an extreme. So how we train, we're obviously taking that to the limit. How we diet, that is taking it to the absolute limit. It is an extreme version of dieting and training, and just to bear that in mind. Anyone who competes will know what they're undertaking. They will know that it's extreme. It is quite an extreme sport. So with that comes an extreme in kind of the opposite way when you rebound and you bounce back. Now I don't coach people for competitions, but I do coach people for their posing, and I help people with posing routines and things like that. So over the years, and just from being a competitor as well, just talking to other competitors, I get a lot of questions from competitors just asking about how to cope with this and what to do. So today I'm going to touch a little bit on that. I'm going to tell you about my experience with post-show binging, which is really awful. It's so embarrassing, but I'm just going to tell everything exactly as it happened. It's not pretty, it's not nice, but it is something that I think everybody goes through, and it's something that people feel a huge amount of guilt about. I also want to touch on for your everyday person who has these issues as well. And again, they hopefully won't be as extreme as a competitor might have, but it is something that kind of shows its face whenever somebody is trying to restrict their food. So post-show binging for competitors. So when you are getting ready for a show, you are going to be you're depriving yourself for the entire time that you are in prep. So whether that be, most people I prep usually for 12 weeks. I know some people who prep for 16, 20 weeks, even longer, depending on your starting weight. So you're talking about extreme restrictions for that period of time. And that's not just restrictions in terms of calories. Obviously you're going to be in a calorie deficit, but it is not as simple as that. Food when you are in a prep, it can change week to week, not in terms of the type of food that you're eating. Everything is going to be insanely plain. You're not getting much pleasure from food. So you don't actually realise, I think, how much pleasure you get from food until it is taken away from you. So if you are someone who's never competed and you've just tried a kind of average diet, and after a couple of days you're like, oh Jesus Christ, like that really is as a fraction of the pain that a competitor will go through when they are competing. So our food is very plain, like I said, and you can have different amounts on different days. So most of us will carb cycle. You'll have days where you'll have higher carbs, lower fats that will change around, but regardless of whatever way you do it, your food is plain. You're dealing with hunger because you're in a calorie deficit, and you're also training a huge amount, and then you're dealing with cravings so even if you're not hungry, you are still going to get cravings because you're literally not tasting anything nice. And that can get really hard as the weeks go on. I learned this probably the hardest way that you can possibly learn it. So last week I touched on my first show, my first experience with that show, and I explained that I didn't have a coach then. I didn't know a huge amount of other competitors. I didn't really know what to expect. So I will talk you through the aftermath of that show. So So it was not nice, guys. So I basically, but before I started competing, I would kind of sit around 48 to 50 kilos. Now please bear in mind, I am 5'2". I just lied to you, I'm not 5'2". 5'1.5". And if I stretch, really stretch, I'm 5'2". And I would naturally have like a tiny frame, kind of like a child almost. So that even at like 50 kilos before I started bodybuilding, I was really small. I would have been wearing like a small size clothes, but I was still kind of squidgy and stuff. I was a bit soft. But I'm just a very small person with a very small frame. So that weight would kind of be normal for somebody of kind of my natural stature, if you will. So yeah, I kind of started, I'd say around the 50 kilo mark. And I went into that prep. I didn't weigh myself at that time for that show at all. I just went by how I looked. So I don't really know. I would say I was probably down to about 47 kilos maybe for that first show. No, I wasn't incredibly lean, but I didn't have a lot of muscle either at the time. So like I compete at 48, 49 kilos now, but I would be so much leaner than I was at 48, 49 kilos then. So, but yeah, so that's where I started, or that's where I ended up. I ended up my stage weight at probably about 47 kilos. And then I remember the day of the show, I explained in the last video, I got my trophy, it was all amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then it happened. And I remember being backstage and being like, I can eat. Oh my God. And then I started eating, and I didn't stop for about 3 months, I'd say. And I don't mean eating, like I would have eaten really well before I started competing, because I was always in the fitness industry. So I ate, especially before then, I'd kind of got really into my training. Before I decided to compete, I was already really into my training. I did like the paleo for a while. I was always trying new diets and stuff to use on clients, but I would have eaten really well. But my God, oh my God, I just ate everything that I saw. And I couldn't physically stop myself. I'm talking, this went on for weeks. I remember one of my friends, actually, I had said that at that time I was working in Westwood. I gave her a lift home, this is a few weeks after the show. We finished our shift at the same time. And she got into my car and she looked at the back seat and she was like, why are there like hundreds of bottles of chocolate Yazoos? Like every time I pass a petrol station, I just pop in and get a chocolate Yazoo and a Snickers. This is just in the middle of the day, every day, on top of all my food. I was eating everything in sight. I mean, I just couldn't stop it. So by I don't remember the time frame, but it wasn't too long. I'd say maybe 6 or 8 weeks after the show, I weighed myself, and I was 61 kilos. Now, so again, I'm sure there are people, 61 kilos is a totally normal weight. You know, 61, your weight is based on your height and all of that. So this is, I'm not saying 61 kilos is heavy, but for me, I had never been that weight ever. Before I started training, while I was never in my whole life had I ever been that weight. Especially, like even if I got up to 60 kilos now, it wouldn't look like it looked then, because I literally only had a fraction of the muscle. And I mean, I was swollen out, my clothes didn't fit me, nothing fit me. Because I had said I was working in sales at the time, I had like these pencil skirts I used to wear. I fucking ripped one of the skirts. I sat down and it ripped. And that's how fast, like the weight gain was astronomical. Now, I was eating chocolate crap shit all day. And I had said in the last video, at that time, I was living with my dad and my stepmom. And so they had gone from seeing me kind of picking, I was just boiling my food, eating bits. And then my dad was like, who ate all the peanut butter? I was like, he's like, I just bought it yesterday. I was like, I don't know. I was just eating everything. And then I just couldn't rein myself back in. And I remember explaining this to somebody later, like a few years later, I was explaining this to another competitor, and they were like, well, what did you think was going to happen if you ate like that? And I was like, I didn't. Because again, I had no coach, I didn't have anybody, I wasn't prepared. Nobody told me, nobody prepared, because again, I had nobody to ask, but I was not prepared for how I was going to feel when the show finished. I had no idea that, and it is overwhelming. Like, it's easy to say, oh, I'll just don't eat that. It was overwhelming. Like, I would have gouged somebody's eye out for some chocolate, I swear to God. Like, it was overwhelming, and that weight went on so fast. I was eating so much crap, and I was like swollen. My body was swollen. It was awful, because it had gone from having such clean food and to been in such good shape to then this massive extreme, and I had started drinking as well. I started going on lots of nights out and everything, so there was booze involved. Oh my God, it was just dreadful. So then by the time I went for the next show, I obviously started that a lot heavier. I did not come in as lean for my second show. I still placed at that when I came fourth, but really when I look back, I didn't even deserve that. They shouldn't have given that to me. I was like, you could still see the swell from the months of bad eating. So that is just my example. Now, by the way, I do not feel like this anymore whatsoever. I will go into that in a few minutes. I nearly have the opposite problem now. But I have no issues with that at all. That is gone. That was in my earlier days when I was learning, and I kind of didn't really prepare myself mentally. So if you are competing, that is one thing that you really need to prepare for. And I'm sure, again, everybody has a coach now. You know, I don't know if anybody would really compete without a coach. So that is something that your coach is going to do for you. They're going to teach you how to reverse diet, bring the calories back up slowly, bring yourself out of it. But even sometimes, like I think it was, where are we now? Oh, it's so weird because we've just missed a whole year. But 2019, when we were able to socialise, I was talking to a girl who I was doing posing with, and she had a terrible rebound, and she still had a coach. She had a whole reverse diet plan. She was prepared. This was her first show where a coach had told her, you're going to feel this way. And she's like, no, I'll be fine. And again, even though she had her plan in place, even though she had everything, when you've been that deprived and you can eat, it's like your survival instinct kicking in to literally eat as many calories as you can. So what I will say is over time, every year for me, that got easier. Again, so I'm at the point now where literally it wouldn't affect me whatsoever. When I finish a show, I actually find it hard now to integrate back into society, if you know what I mean. So I actually find it hard. I'll obviously eat something the day of the show, but I get so used to planning my meals and having everything so structured, I actually find the opposite hard now, to go back to eating that's not on a plan. That could take me maybe 6 to 8 weeks to try and get my head out of that ridiculously structured way of eating. Now, I would still eat really structured anyway, but when you're in a prep, everything is so detailed. So I actually have the opposite now, really. But yeah, for anybody who is looking to compete, that is one thing that you need to prepare for. And if it has happened to you, like, people get so depressed over, because again, you have to remember, you have these girls who are looking at themselves peeled to the bone. You're in the best physical shape of your life, and that can be undone. I'm telling you, that can be undone in a week. And you can look down if you eat really badly. I mean, I'm talking all day, every day, which is what happens. I'm not talking about a few treats here and there. I'm talking about you wake up in the morning, you start eating and you don't stop. It can be gone in a week, and mentally that's very hard to look at your body, go back. You're like, all those months of training to look this way, and then it's gone in an instant. So it really, really messes with people's heads. So what I will say is, if you have competed and you have experienced that, that's totally normal. It is a normal response. Your body just trying to protect itself. So yeah, so do not feel bad if that has happened to you. And the same thing, it actually happens with people who diet just generally. So I have it with clients all the time. Again, the clients I work with are your general everyday people who just want to get in shape, and they just get these overwhelming cravings. Now, nobody should be dieting the way a competitor diets. That is not normal. I would never give a client what I would use for a competition. So if you are dieting and you are getting overwhelming cravings, you need to definitely look and make sure you're getting enough of everything in your daily diet. Make sure you're getting enough variety, because that's a big thing, is making sure you're varying your food, and you're getting your protein from different sources, fats from different sources, carbs from different sources, and you're eating things that you like and that you enjoy. And if your macros are balanced enough, you shouldn't get those cravings. And if you have a structured plan with refeeds and different things involved in there, then you shouldn't get those. But it is something that everybody, I think, struggles with on an extreme. But just know that it's totally normal. When you start to burn body fat, that's the most unnatural thing in the world. Like, for our bodies, where our bodies have evolved over years to survive. So, I don't think our bodies have quite caught up with the fact that we are now living in an environment where there is food everywhere and we don't need to store. But I think, I think that's definitely got something to do with it, is that need to actually not burn fat, because, the more fat you have, the more likely you are to live. That's how it kind of would have been. So our bodies are kind of working in an environment that's not quite natural, really, with all of the food that we have around. So it's just about trying to control things and make sure that you're eating enough, and you're eating a varied enough diet. Unless you're on a competition prep, in which case you have no choice but to pretty much suffer. That's the name of the game. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this up. I literally just wanted to touch on that subject, because it is something that I've had so many competitors over the years ask me about, and they get so upset about it as well. They feel so awful. So I'm just hoping that maybe a few people are watching this to know that it is normal, and to know that there is a way around it, and it is something that you will harden to, definitely. But it takes time. It takes time to train not just your body but your brain as well. And you can, it does go away, but your first couple of shows, definitely, it's going to be something that will most likely affect everybody in some way. So just know that it's okay. If you do gain a little bit extra, you can rein it back in later. You just got to let your body do what it needs to do. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I hope that it was useful and that somebody found it useful. And again, I would love if you could give me comments on what you would like to see in my next video. So please subscribe and comment below, and I will see you next week.